A team of BBC engineers were scouring these hills in 1989 in the hunt for a rogue transmitter that was ruining TV reception for residents of Cornholme in Todmorden, West Yorkshire, just near the Lancashire border. BBC Two viewers began complaining about the sudden deterioration of their television picture. The quality of the picture deteriorated so badly that their TVs were unviewable. BBC engineers at Winter Hill and Home Moss transmitting stations suspected that the relay transmitter at Saddleworth was to blame. For some time there had been cross-channel interference between the Saddleworth and Cornholme relays. This was minor, however, and unrelated to the present fuzzy pictures on BBC Two. The real cause of the problem was thought to be caused by one of 4 possible transmitters to the north of Cornholme. The engineers set out to find which one was to blame, believing that the likely cause was that one of the transmitters had drifted slightly off its correct frequency. In hilly areas with low density of population, many transmitters are located to give maximum coverage. They all work on the same frequency, but a combination of distance and hills normally prevents them from overlapping and causing interference. Odd quirks of geography and strange weather conditions, such as long periods of high pressure, could sometimes combine to ruin analog television signals. Other interference was usually due to slight changes in the frequency or output of the transmitters. The engineers sorted the problem, but the talk of hills, relay transmitters and Saddleworth in this previously unpublished tidbit led me to a trip to the moors above Oldham to profile Saddleworth Relay. Saddleworth Relay serves the small towns and villages in the West Pennines that are blocked by hills from receiving Winter Hill. It sits on a small peak called Warmton Hill, just southwest of the centre of what Google Maps calls Saddleworth, which is actually a collection of villages and hamlets as well as suburbs of Oldham on the west side of the Pennine Hills. Because of its size and location, it has a great footprint across parts of Greater Manchester, Lancashire and Cheshire. It transmits digital television, DAB radio, local and national BBC FM radio, as well as local commercial radio. I read somewhere that to protect the astronomical frequencies used at Jodrell Bank Observatory, 25 miles to the south, Saddleworth adopted the same non-standard UHF television allocation as Moyley Park in North Wales. How true this is, I don't know, so if anyone can shed any light on this, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. You can see Jodrell Bank down on the Cheshire Plain from Saddleworth. The above theory would make sense because the relay fires a lot of RF down in that direction. You can also see Windy Hill from up here, part of the Backbone network, which was a microwave network designed to keep the country running from a communications point of view in the event of a nuclear war. Looking west you can see Oldham North Relay, another digital television relay of Winter Hill, just poking out from above the trees. South of that is Oldham Civic Centre, a multi-use radio site with local and community FM stations up there. And off in the distance is Heaton Park BT Tower, a spur of the Backbone network I mentioned earlier. Television signals from Saddleworth have always been radiated via a cylinder antenna. I'm not certain how old the current one is, but it's visually similar to what was there in the early days. These cylinders usually contain a cardioid antenna, but a source I read claims that Saddleworth's doesn't contain a cardioid. If that's the case, then what is it? This video was really frustrating to put together, because there are elements of Saddleworth which I can't definitively identify, like what's supposedly inside the cylinder up at the top. I've posed 1 or 2 other questions for you as we run through the video. The current digital television services replaced the original analogue services. The first transmission from Saddleworth was BBC Two television in colour from February 2, 1970 on Channel 45. The next service to launch was ITV on January 28, 1972 on Channel 49. BBC One launched in April 1972 on Channel 52, and finally Channel 4 launched in June 1984 on Channel 42. The analogue television output was 500 watts. The digital switchover or DSO took place at Saddleworth on the 4th of November and 2nd of December 2009. Before this, interim digital television was being broadcast from Saddleworth from 1998. The ARP was just 20 watts. In 2005, the government confirmed that the digital switchover would occur across the UK on a region-by-region basis between 2008 and 2012. The switchover involved engineering works being conducted at every one of the UK's television transmitter sites. The 700 MHz clearance was a project designed to free up the 700 MHz frequency band for use by mobile network operators, particularly for 5G services. This involved moving Freeview TV channels out of this band, which had previously been used for digital terrestrial television and some professional audio equipment. The project was completed in August 2020 after a 4-year £350 million programme. When the TV transmitters changed frequencies, millions of Freeview TV viewers had to retune their television sets to pick up the new frequencies. The 700 MHz clearance works took place at Saddleworth in August 2020, and I'll show you what changed shortly. Today, Saddleworth radiates 6 digital television multiplexes. They are BBC A, Channel 45, D3 and 4, Channel 39, BBC B, Channel 42, SDN, Channel 51, Arkiva A, Channel 52, and Arkiva B, Channel 48. Saddleworth is a relay, so how does it receive its television signals and where does it receive them from? Well, it receives them from Winter Hill Transmitting Station, just over 21 miles away. These two troughs are UHF receive troughs. The top one is the old one, and it received television signals from Winter Hill in order for the Saddleworth relay to retransmit those signals to the local area. The 700 MHz clearance works I mentioned earlier can be seen here in the form of the lower trough. This is a new addition that was installed in August 2020. It's not really a trough either, it's referred to as a panel. Interestingly, there are 2 log periodics lower down the mast which also point to Winter Hill. What these are for I don't know. They may be a backup or may have been used before the 700 MHz clearance. They're the standard log periodic usually found on smaller television relays, but their use is a mystery to me. 4 of Saddleworth's multiplexes are on the same frequencies as those at Moyley Park in North Wales. Therefore, Saddleworth is responsible for interference to otherwise strong Welsh television signals over much of the Manchester area, despite the fact that Saddleworth's antenna is vertically polarised and Moyley Park's is horizontally polarised. The radiation pattern from Saddleworth is predominantly north and south, I assume to alleviate some of the co-channel interference. Further down we come to 4 cross-polarised Yagi antennas used for local radio. ILR Manchester or Piccadilly Radio commenced transmissions from Saddleworth at 5 AM on April 2, 1974, on 97 MHz FM at 2 kW ERP. The antenna system used was a pair of stacked 6-element circularly polarised Yagis that beamed in the direction of Manchester. The station was named after Piccadilly Gardens in Manchester, and Piccadilly Plaza was home to its first studios until 1996, when it relocated to the Castlefield area of Manchester. In those days, Saddleworth transmitter was fed via microwave link from Piccadilly Plaza. Piccadilly became Key 103 on Saturday the 3rd of September 1988 and moved to 103 MHz at 4 kW. On the 18th of April 2018, the current station owners Bauer Media announced Key 103 would be rebranded and relaunched as Hits Radio Manchester, which is how it remains today, transmitting 4 kW from Saddleworth. Hits Radio Manchester appears to be line-fed today, probably via fibre. On the other side of the mast to the local radio Yagis are 2 vertical dipoles that are used by BBC Radio. The 2 antennas are actually phased to form one, and are fed multiple radio stations by a combiner which allows the 2 dipoles to radiate multiple stations simultaneously. BBC National Radio came to Saddleworth in September 1991. Radio 1 is on 99.3, Radio 2 is on 89.8, Radio 3 is on 91.9, and Radio 4 is on 94.1, all at 95 watts. Hits Radio and BBC can be heard as far as the Blackpool Coast, the Lake District and North Wales. How is BBC Radio fed? Well, towards the bottom of the mast is a Band 2 log periodic, which points over to Home Moss Transmitting Station just 6.7 miles over to the west. In fact, you can actually see the top of Home Moss peering over the moors out beyond Dovestones. The Home Moss signal tends to be patchy along the eastern fringes of Greater Manchester, where the mast, despite being one of the highest in the UK, is not in line of sight with certain areas, hence the need for the relay at Saddleworth. Radio Manchester started transmissions from Saddleworth in July 1996. It's on 104.6 today at just 0.1 kilowatts. These two antennas I couldn't identify. They appear to point southeast. I can't be certain whether or not these antennas are used by BBC Radio Manchester or for something else. The Ofcom data lists everything at Saddleworth being at the same height on the mast. I was under the impression that Radio Manchester used the BBC national dipoles. If anyone can clear this up, then please let us know. Otherwise, I just don't know what these two do. Just below the UHF television cylinder is two sets of Yagis pointing roughly north and south. These are used to transmit 3 DAB radio multiplexes. Again, they're fed by a combiner, which allows the two sets to radiate the 3 multiplexes. They are BBC National 12B, CE Digital Manchester DAB 12C, and Digital 111D. There's a satellite dish in the grounds of the compound which is for the DAB feed. Whether it's the main feed behind a fibre link, I'm not certain. This broken Yagi points towards the Manchester area. I don't know if it was some kind of feed for Manchester ILR many years ago, but I doubt it's still in use today. Saddleworth is home to a police airwave radio repeater which provides coverage across the area. Most police radio sites tend to use these 4-stack phased folded dipoles in sets of 3, although Saddleworth has 2. The police also use a complex series of microwave links. One heads south to Werneth Low in Hyde, 7.5 miles away. The other goes northwest to a police site at Scouts Head, 1.3 miles away, northwest of the town of Oldham. There's at least 3 BT microwave links from Saddleworth too. One runs to a small relay over at Delph, 1.9 miles to the north. The second runs over to the Windy Hill Tower by the M62 motorway, 5.8 miles to the north. The third runs down to Dovestones Reservoir, 1.9 miles to the southeast, but I can't be sure to what exactly. All 3 likely support the BT mobile phone network. There's also 2 JRC microwave links. JRC is the radio and spectrum management side of the national grid, the UK electricity transmission and gas transmission and distribution company. One link runs west to this electricity substation on St Mary's Way in Oldham, 3.8 miles away. The second goes to Winter Hill, 21 miles to the west. Arqiva also has a link running the 21 miles over to Winter Hill for broadcast-related use. There's a large mobile phone presence on the mast. EE, O2, Vodafone and 3 all operate from here. There's also microwave links to support these networks. I identified 2 EE links. One runs north 4.2 miles away to a cell tower off Rippenden Road. The other runs west 3.9 miles to Oldham Civic Centre. A Vodafone link runs to Oldham North Relay, 3.7 miles to the west. Down at ground level is a small transmitter hall along with numerous units relating to power distribution and the mobile phone networks. There's a vertical on a pole which I couldn't identify, along with this small roof-based dipole which I couldn't identify either. I've drawn up a plan showing what everything I can identify is. Some of the buildings and cabins must be shared, as I couldn't identify specific EE and O2 cabinets. The digital television room is shared with BT Utilities, and Arqiva's equipment is located in the same building as the police airwave equipment. So that's a very complicated and complex Saddleworth relay. For more transmitter tours, check out the playlist linked in the description below.